Welcome to the Maureen Pound Show, where we talk about have extraordinary insights from really cool business people. Today, I have the amazing Paul McCarthy, and he's going to be talking about the 4 essential streams of communication every business owner needs to have to grab people's attention, to grow their prospect list, to demonstrate the expertise, and to ultimately convert, which is what we all want when we're in business. So can't wait to talk to Paul. He's a really lovely bloke. We connected on LinkedIn. He's got a really good vibe about him, really honest and, straight to the point, says it like it is. And I'm really excited about having him on the show today. So welcome to the Maureen Pound Show. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Maureen, great to be with you.
Yes, lovely to see you again. Now, I always like to jump in the deep end because I'm not that sort of gal. So the audience can get a real feel for who you are. Can you share with me something a bit quirky or different about you?
Well, I guess my background into business is, I guess, a little unusual because my pathway to here was being a musician. So for about 10 years of my life, I banged away trying to be a rock and roll star, only to get sick of being poor. So eventually I had to, as my mother always threatened, to get a real job, and here I am.
Good choice. But was it fun doing it?
I loved it. Loved every minute of being a musician and doing. As I say, it's the same challenge that many people in business find. That I was incredibly passionate about it. I think I was reasonably talented, but I simply couldn't get it to drive the economic engine. I couldn't get it to make enough money to make it my livelihood. And of course, the closer you get to the pinnacle, sometimes the harder the challenges become. So, we had the opportunity to do a tour with Men at Work. We're doing a Reformation tour back in the day, and we were going to be the support act and basically on break-even touring. So it means you get your accommodation, your travel, your meals, and about $100 each a week to survive for 3 weeks. I already had a baby. I was another one on the way. It was time for me to head in a different direction because I just couldn't keep up with the demands of it. So that was the end for me. But yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and many of the lessons I learned there, I share and teach today in the marketing work that I do.
Excellent. So that's a lovely segue into today's show and what you're going to be talking about. So tell us a little bit about the importance of communication in business, and then we'll look at the 4 really important elements.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, my business is about marketing. It's about communicating what it is that you do, and how well you communicate that really ultimately determines how well your business is going to go. And I think when you think about communication, there's really a sort of simple hierarchy to think about. So the hierarchy of communication, and most people are trapped at the base level of communication, and that is that they primarily send sales-based messages. They're just selling all of the time. But when you send just sales messages all the time, what you're going to find is most of those messages are ignored. So people are highly skilled at avoiding the commercial messages. Many people, if we talk about television, well, people IQ, they record shows, they watch shows that don't come with any ads. If they do, they have recorded them so they can fast forward through them. If we're talking about social media, about 30% of people in Australia have already added an ad blocker to their social channels to stop people's ads getting through to them. So if you're at the base level of, that's first level hierarchy of communication, where all you do is drive sales messages, then most of them will go unheard. The next level of the hierarchy is we move from sell to tell. So when you tell people about what you do, or you tell them about the results that you generate, they will consider you potentially. You might get some consideration when you're telling people about your skill set or about the outcomes that it produces. But ultimately, the height, the top of your communication hierarchy is teach. So when you teach, you are adding value first. You're delivering value before anything else. So one of the principles we teach is, serve before you sell. It's about how do you add tremendous value through your communication strategies. So that's the beginning point, is understanding the hierarchy of communication. And if you go back and you look at your communication now, you start thinking about, well, how much is it about selling? How often am I just driving a sales message? How much is about telling, where I'm talking about myself and what I do and maybe how well I do it? And where am I doing teaching, where I'm actually adding value to my audience?
Yeah. So, so how often do you find people get stuck down at the bottom of the hierarchy because they feel like that's what they need to do?
Yeah, look, I mean, particularly, it's always interesting that it actually goes up in a crisis, if you like, because people get more desperate, so they start pushing out more sales messages. It's actually counterintuitive. It's the opposite thing to what we want to do. What people who have been able to manage their way through the challenges of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, the businesses that have become more generous, they've started to think about their customer first. And that's always your starting point. If you want to improve your quality of your communication, start with thinking about your customer first instead of thinking about yourself first and what you do. So a lot of people, when they think of marketing, think of self-promotion. They think of trying to promote what it is they do to other people. But if you want to get people's attention, that's not where we want to start. So, the first pillar of communication, of our 4 communication strategy, is I've got to build communication that's going to attract people. So how do I attract attention to me? Well, I don't do it by talking about myself. I don't do it by pushing a sales message. I do it by educating them. So the key here is most people are leading with the solution. They're going out to a market saying, here's who I am. We can solve this problem. What they need to be doing is going out and talking to their audience about the problem. So the hook, if you like, when you're designing your hook to attract somebody in, is understanding the primary pain, problem, or issue that you solve for them. What's the issue? I mean, your business is a great example that, working in the LinkedIn space, and then people saying, well, we need now help with that. And so you started to solve their problem. You look at the next thing based on the problem rather than just taking an idea to a market and trying to push it on people.
Yeah, so that's really great, because often people have they're passionate about something, and they just lead with that, don't they, before they even look at what the need is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of these things. One of the challenges for us when we're communicating our business is we are all so close to our own businesses. We live in them. We know the information. We teach this stuff. We live this stuff. We practice this stuff. So what we've got to understand is the audience that we're talking to don't have that knowledge. We actually, from a communication point of view, have got to take ourselves out of the business for a moment, step into the shoes of our buyer, and realize if we're, up this end of the spectrum, that customer is way down the other end. They are down the far end of the spectrum. We're way up here, doing the thinking at another level. But we can't start our conversation there. So if we want to attract the customer, your hook to attracting them is start with the problem they've actually got. Talk to them about the thing that's on their mind, that's bothering them, that's their issue, and that will get their attention. You will attract their attention if you talk to them about the things that matter to them, which are their issues, and not leading with a solution or your services.
Yeah, I love it. And we all love talking about our problems, don't you? Don't we? I find that's a good way to get referrals too, when listening to people's problems.
Yeah, well, it's a great way. It's a smart way for a marketer. One of the keys to being a good marketer is you must listen more than you talk. You must listen to your market. What is the market saying? What problems are they talking about? What is agitating them? Where are the friction points? They are all the pieces of gold, if you like, from a marketing communication point of view, to start tapping onto, because those things are on people's minds. Therefore, when you talk about them, you're going to get attention.
Yeah, great. Now, part of this hierarchy, I love you talked about the teaching. I've had clients in the past who are tentative about giving too much away, as it were. Like, how much do I give away for free when I teach people, especially if you're a service-based business? So what are your thoughts on teaching and, you know, how much you do give away and how much is a pay for outcome?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I think it is definitely something that's on the mind of a lot of business owners. Is I don't want to give away the farm. I don't want to tell them everything. But when you think about the range of issues, you know, solving a problem, that there are multiple pieces to it. So the key to your client attraction is that you're zeroing in on a problem, not solving all the problems. You're not giving away all of your IP and all of your knowledge, but you're giving away something of value. You're starting to deal with an insight because you've got to establish a connection. And really that's where it leads us to the second communication point in terms of critical communication points that people need to have. Well, the second piece that they're going to need is content that people are willing to trade details for. So it's content that connects. So if we're going to create content that people are wanting to consume and connect with, we're going to have to give them something of value, and we're going to need to deliver on a promise. But it's not about solving all of them. It's about figuring out one very specific issue with how to do something that they want to do, and then sharing the insights with them about how to do that. But if you are so fearful of giving away your knowledge that you go, oh, I can't tell anybody because then they won't buy from you. Well, you're already creating a roadblock for yourself that's going to stop them from buying from you anyway. So, you know, if I said, you know, I've got all the answers you need, Maureen, they're just under my jacket here, but I'm not going to tell you any of them until you pay me money. Well, it's like, well, what if I share some insights with you? I build some trust, I demonstrate expertise, I give value first, and then you go, okay, maybe this guy knows something about what he's talking about. What else can he help me with? And so a relationship can build and grow. And that's really the most effective way to do it.
Yeah, okay, beautiful. So we're now on to the second point where it's about giving away great content and, you know, trading your details for that. So it really feels like this is fair exchange there. You're not asking, you know, people on a hope and a prayer that they give you money and that they're going to like the results they get with you, because there's no proof of that yet. But
No.
so tell me around about the practicalities of how you would do this.
So, I mean, you're touching on one critical point, which is one of the things is the exchange element. So when you package up value and give it away in advance, I mean, we think about information is done in two ways. So in marketing, we talk about it at two levels. You have ungated and you have gated. So ungated content is things like my blog posts. If I'm doing social posts, I'm maybe putting articles into the media. I'm doing YouTube videos. I'm creating content that people can readily get to and view. That's important content. That's your attraction content. That's stage one. Content that connects is content that's gated. It means that the person must exchange some details with me to get access to it. So we are capturing their data and building one of our most important assets in our business, which is our list. And so we have a list building strategy. Now, to capture the data, we've got to package something of value that the person wants. It's helping them to solve a problem. So practically, we can think about a bunch of things. So we could have a checklist that's helping them to identify some problems. We could create an ebook, a resource that spells out. You have a fantastic resource that's helping people to understand what VAs can do for them. And that's helping people to get clarity about, well, who should I hire? Because you and I know that in the VA world, you know, one of the mistakes that people will make is they will rush to do the VA and hire somebody, but they won't have organized their thinking, their process around what am I going to get that person to do. So you're helping them through this great resource to clarify the thing they need to start thinking about so that they get success much more quickly with their VA relationship. So that's a great example of a fantastic tool that's helping people. Now, to get the tool, they exchange data. Now we have the chance to develop a relationship and build from there. But what happens is what Cialdini talked about in terms of the law of reciprocity, in terms of influence and persuasion. What happens when somebody gets something of value, it ignites in us a sense of reciprocity, the sense that we kind of need to now pay at least attention to the person who's being gracious enough to give us something of real value. Cialdini tells a great story, an example that he gives in his book about influence and persuasion, about the Hare Krishnas. So Hare Krishnas used to be very common. Certainly when I was growing up as a boy, we'd see a lot more of them around. But, you know, they'd be in the airport, and if people aren't familiar with them, they're usually shaved heads, a bit of different face makeup on, little symbols and things dancing around. And they would, in the airport, they'd come up to you and they'd hand a little flower, and just a tiny little flower. And in exchange, they'd ask if you would make a donation. Now, nobody really wanted the flower, but as soon as the flower was put in the person's hand, it ignites this sense of reciprocity, the sense of, okay, something's been given to me, so I want to make a contribution back. So people would donate even though they didn't really want to. And then what would happen is people walk through the airport, they get to the first bin at the other end, they throw the flower away because they didn't want the flower. There's another Hare Krishna there picking up flowers, running it back to the first guy to hand them out. So we're igniting the law of reciprocity. Give first, give real value.
I'm not sure if Paul's might have just, the connection has gone a bit astray. My Hare Krishna story is when I was travelling around Australia in a Holden HZ station wagon, and we were in Darwin, and there were Hare Krishnas there, and they used to feed us. Like, we'd have, they'd be dancing around and offering to come and have a beautiful vegetarian meal with them, and really built lots of great relationships, and that the reciprocal relationships were formed where you would give donations, and I think even they got to share their faith with other people as well. So so it's really that whole idea of giving first to receive is a big one. The other thing that really I think really fits in with Paul was saying was this whole idea of trading details. And there's different ways these days. So like Paul said, there's, you could send an ebook. Paul's got a really fantastic 12-step checklist, which you can also get, which is marketersclubacademy.com/checklist. marketersclubacademy.com/checklist. You get hold of that. And, that's another way where he's giving really great value. You can suss him out, and if you need help, then he's the guy that you would potentially go to, because you build that trust. Another thing that we've been doing is attracting people to ungated marketing, which is on our website. For instance, our blogs on there, and then what happens is with remarketing and retargeting these days, if people come to your website and are interested in your content, and then they go up to, say, onto social media, like Facebook, for instance, then we can retarget with ads. And it's really interesting because Carmen, my business partner, she says to me, I love the Facebook ads. So it's not gone are the days where you just got random ads like you do on television. It's got nothing to do with you at all. It's like this spray marketing. I hope I actually connect with somebody. This sort of retargeted marketing for your business works really well, because that person at some stage has gone to your website and has been interested for whatever reason, and so they've shown interest. So when they then go across to somewhere like Facebook, or even Google, do Google ads as well, you're then targeting them based on what they've been looking at on your website. And it just works really well. And when you do that retargeting, you don't pummel people. You can, what you would do is you show them a few more times, and then you would stop showing them the same thing. You might break it up and show them other things. So Carmen's been playing a lot in this space, and it's a really great way because it fits well with what Paul's been talking about with this trading details for content, because eventually that's what we want to be doing, is trading these details for content. So welcome back, Paul. So we've talked about two things there. What's the third thing?
So apologies for my internet dropping out. So that was fun. So the third thing is we must create content that is designed to nurture the prospect. So one of the big gaps that most businesses have is that they are not nurturing prospects once they're gained. So they are basically driving sales messages out. They're trying to turn what we talk about, going from lead to sale. They're just trying to do a lead to sales strategy. And what we teach is lead to list. We want to get somebody onto a list and then nurture a prospect until that person becomes ready to buy. So that we need to be able to add continuous value. So the principle we teach is what we call the rule of six. And the rule of six comes from my old industry, the music biz. And so the principle of the rule of six is, if you're in commercial radio, for example, an FM station, you're adding a song to your playlist, you add it on what's called high rotation. And the goal of high rotation is to get the listener to hear the song 6 times as quickly as possible, because after 6 listens, you'll be familiar with the melody, you'll be able to sing along, you will know the song. And that's why if you are a commercial radio listener, you'll hear a new tune, it'll get played over and over, you become familiar with it, kind of fall in love and go, I love that song. And it doesn't take long till you go, oh my God, they're playing that song again, because they just go on and on with it so often on high rotation. But the goal is to get you familiar with the tune. So the same principles happen in our business. When you connect with a customer, if you've made a connection, imagine you are single, you're going into a bar, you see somebody who's attractive to you, you walk over to them, you've never met them before, and you say, let's get married. Well, the chances of success are pretty slim, because that's not how relationships work, and they don't work like that in business either. So, hi, I don't know you, buy my stuff is not the most efficient and effective way to do it. We want to establish a connection, build the trust, demonstrate the expertise, add the value, and at the same time, what we're doing is understanding the pain, the problem, and helping the client to enroll them in their own desire to move past this challenge, this issue, whatever it is you serve them by doing. We're helping them to move. So we want to create some automation in your business where you can start to communicate and move people along. One of the keys to making it through this pandemic successfully, the businesses that have done the best are the businesses that had a strong sales funnel that was able to nurture people effectively and then move them along the pathway, develop that relationship.
Yeah. So I've got a problem that I'd like to run by you, Paul. It's around this. So we're really good at getting leads, and at the moment we're not doing the rule of six. So people download our book and they're in our database, and then we send I don't want to call it a newsletter because I don't like the term. It's not news. A value piece to people. Yes. But we don't want to continually just be VA. So it's much broader than that. But we only send it out, fortnightly. So it's not, you're not hearing that quick succession from us. So what would be your take on that or advice around that?
So my advice straight away is, if somebody is, you say you've been effective with the first part of the strategy, is you're getting people into the funnel and that they've started the journey by indicating that they've downloaded the book, and do that. Now, as you know, there are a broad range of reasons why somebody might have downloaded that book in terms of the sort of support and help they are looking for, or they might not be at that level of awareness yet in terms of have they figured out exactly what it is. So what they really want from you is for you to now kind of partner with them in a sense of helping them to figure out this journey. And we want to move them a little more quickly through that nurture phase. So if you like, there's 2 elements here. We can have what you're describing in terms of having a fortnightly piece of communication going out, I would talk about that as being a holding pattern. That is just an ongoing nurture, staying top of mind. That's all fine. That's great. But what we actually want is connected to the final piece of the puzzle, if you like, the fourth stream of communication, is your communication to convert. So these are focused sales funnels that you are designing, where the rule of 6, and it probably will be more than 6 points potentially, will come through to move people to the point where they are ready to buy. If they don't buy, then they can go back to that nurture, just those fortnightly touch points, keeping top of mind. But what we really want to do is design a funnel where we're going to now understand and move them towards that. And so one of the strategies a copywriter would use, and what we teach inside the Marketers Club, is a strategy called PAS, P-A-S. And PAS is an acronym for the way that you want to start to think about this construction of the communication that's going to be in this sales funnel. So we start with the problem. So the beginnings of your emails, and not just a email, but through the email chain, is again coming back to what's the problem that we're talking about? What's the issue? And we want to first focus in on what those problems are. So one of the problems might be the problem of, I'm just not sure who I need. Well, then we're going to have to solve that. I'm not sure, where I should start, who I should hire, what the process is. So we've got to eliminate those problems, these objections that are going off in people's minds. So from the problem, we move into the agitation. So at the end of the day, there's only two things in life that we can really focus on in terms of from a business point of view that we really need to pay careful attention to. One is money, the other is time. Now, money is a renewable asset. It comes back all of the time. We spend it and we make it. We spend it and we make it. Time does not come back. Time, you spend it and it's gone. You wake up, one day and you're 21, you wake up the next day and you're in your 50s and you go, wow, that happened quick. So time passes. So from the point of view of communication with the audience, every day that your audience spends wondering about whether I should get help or I shouldn't get help, or how do I do this, or should I spend the money, is another day where they are losing time. In the time system that we teach in the Marketers Club, we talk about 4 quadrants of time. Being an old muso, our top quadrant, our number 1 quadrant, is called the rockstar quadrant. And that is our focus point with our entrepreneurs, is getting them to get clear about what are their 3 primary money-making activities. What are the 3 things they do extraordinarily well that if left alone to do those would have the biggest impact on their business? The bottom quadrant is what we call the roadie quadrant. When you're the roadie to your business, you're doing all the hard yards, the graft, you're doing all the heavy lifting. That becomes exhausting. One of the greatest moments in my not so illustrious music career was the day we got a roadie. Somebody else to lug the gear out of the van, set it up and do it. I always say the Rolling Stones wouldn't still be playing music if they had to lug their own gear. You can't stay a roadie to your own business forever. And the longer you stay a roadie, the harder and the longer it will be until you actually can get to the revenue potential of your business, because you'll be doing the lower level work. It's important work, but it's not the high end work that you are capable of doing. So that's where your service comes in terms of helping us to find people to do these other tasks. Many of them will do them better than we can do them anyway. So when we have the mindset, the scarcity mindset of, I'm going to try and save a few dollars, to save time, what we're doing is we're expending our most precious asset. Time is, without question, our most precious asset. It's the unrenewable asset of our lives. So we want to get to doing the things we do best as fast as possible. So that's really the key here. So in terms of answering your question, I would make sure that I design a campaign that was designed to move the person through the decision-making process, so they arrive at the logical conclusion that the longer I wait to get the VA I need, the more of my life I burn. And that's really what's on the cards.
Yeah. Awesome. So, so it sort of sounds like it's working from both angles. You've got to make the most of your time and get this funnel happening. but also for the client too, that realization that in my situation, that would be a good thing to point out in terms of their problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, they have connected with you. They want you to kind of help them now move towards the answer to you. They're enrolling you in this mission. And if you don't show up, if you just go, oh, I'll just leave it to you, you figure it out. You come into it whenever you feel like it's like there is a sense of urgency that needs to be driven here. And we need to stimulate sometimes in people because it all comes down to their levels of awareness. I mean, when you become more aware of the passage of time, the value of time, I grew up in a place called West Heidelberg here in Melbourne, which was the site of the Olympic Village in '56 when they hosted the Olympic Games. All the athletes lived in West Heidelberg. And when the athletes left after the games were done, that's where the government put all the poor people. It's a housing commission area, little 12 square concrete fab houses pulled together. So when I grew up there, unwittingly, I grew up with a real scarcity mindset. And it wasn't until I got out into the world and started getting mentors that I learned that making money was okay. It wasn't an evil thing, because that's what I learned in Heidelberg. Anyone with money was the enemy. That you have to break some of these thought patterns as well as you're going. So when somebody connects with you, it's a cry for help. They're saying, okay, this is something I need. Now we need to help them. Sometimes, we all know that getting people to the decision, helping them to get over the inertia, to understand what's really the price that you're paying. What's the real implication here of stalling? And, paying to have the support of a good V8 will pay for itself many times over if people understand. And I think the main reason that they don't move is they're not clear on what they're supposed to be doing. And that's where, the launch point starts. We were talking off air, and I'm happy to make available to all of your listeners and viewers is a checklist that we designed. But, in 2008, if people were in business back in 2008, which I was, I'd already left music. I'd started my coaching consultancy business. 2008 was a global recession. So if people were in business, they'll remember it was a tough time. And my young business really was hit hard by the global recession. Clients started, wanting to drop out. Opportunities dried up. I was like, well, I was really worried about whether I'd have the ability to see it through the storm, if you like, and come out the other side, or whether I was going to be forced to go and get a job just to be able to support my family. So one of my mentors, Dan Kennedy, an American marketer, gave me a list, a checklist of essential things that needed to be implemented if you wanted not simply to survive, but to thrive. And I got busy. I took this list and I diligently added them into my business. And I can tell you, they worked like magic. And my business in 2009, so coming through and out of a recession period, 2009 was my biggest year to that point. We went more than doubled our growth over that year. While most of my competitors were shrinking or disappearing and closing their doors altogether, we were growing rapidly. And it all started with implementation of this list, which I've now, I've developed and enhanced and developed my own version of that list, which we call the marketing inventory checklist. It's a 24-point checklist that gives you the 24 essential things that need to be implemented into a business to truly get it to the point where it can thrive. So if you want to make sure that in 2021, you don't limp through or hobble off the back of a tough 2020, then you're going to want to get the checklist and make sure that you've got most of these locked and loaded in your business. So people can certainly go and get a copy of that. It's at marketersclubacademy.com/checklist. They can download this 24-point checklist. It'll teach them, what and help them to identify where the gaps are in their marketing. And I think that's the first thing is awareness. When you become aware of what the issues are, it takes away the fog and the confusion about what should I be working on. People will get absolute clarity about what they need to start working on. So certainly if I was consulting to your business, I'd say, okay, well, we got the first part of it down. We got a good lead magnet. We're getting leads coming in. What we're not doing is maximizing the value of those leads, which means we're not serving the number of clients we possibly could. We're not helping as many people get the outcomes they could be getting if we just ramped up that journey for them and move them through. So building a structured funnel that probably would run over, instead of having one touch point and then the next one not for a fortnight, you would probably build at least a sequence of 6 or 7 communications that would flow in that 14-day period, that would end up with many more people having VAs and many more people being able to grow their businesses faster.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Paul. Lots of great insights. I'm going to get to my funnel. Lucky I'm a copywriter.
That helps.
So thank you for sharing all your insights. I'm definitely going to go and download your checklist. Sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing so much today. So once again, if you would like that checklist from Paul, it's marketersclubacademy.com/checklist. So if you've just joined towards the end of this and you want to watch the full show today, will also be made available on our website, globalteams.com.au. So thanks, Paul, for joining you. It was really amazing, and I'm sure everyone got lots of great insights from our chat today.
Absolute pleasure. Great to be with you. Take care.
Okay, thanks. So thanks for joining us. There you have it. More insights from Paul, marketersclubacademy.com/checklist. And if you'd like to have access to this full interview, then go to globalteams.com.au. It'll be available there shortly. We'll see you next time.